International students studying English in Scotland always say the same thing to me. Why is it that I can understand you, teacher, but as soon as I leave the classroom and talk to other Scottish people, I really struggle to understand? My students are definitely not the only ones to have this experience. Perhaps you've even felt this way too. If you'd like to know why this happens to so many new international arrivals in Scotland, keep watching. Hi, I'm Gemma from the Scottish Sound School. I'm an English language teacher and pronunciation specialist. I work with teachers and new international arrivals in Scotland, helping them to make sense of the unfamiliar sounds and speech they are hearing. So why are some Scottish speakers easier to understand than others for new international arrivals? The reason behind this common difficulty comes down to the languages that are spoken here in Scotland. If you haven't already, check out my previous video on the languages of Scotland and how they affect listeners, as it might give you some helpful background information before watching this video. To answer my students' question about why they sometimes struggle to understand other Scottish speakers, I'm going to introduce you to Isabel. Isabel is a Scottish teacher of English, living and working in Scotland. We are going to follow Isabel on a normal day and observe the languages she uses. It's 8 a.m. Isabel leaves home and travels to work by train. Before arriving at school, she stops and buys a coffee, speaking in Scottish Standard English to the Italian coffee shop owner. Scottish Standard English is simply the formal variety of English spoken in Scotland using Scottish sounds. She uses Scottish Standard English to ensure her order is clear and easy to understand. It's 9 a.m. Isabel begins work teaching English to students from all over the world. She speaks in Scottish Standard English most of the time, but sometimes uses words from the Scots language that her students know, such as wee, which means small. Scots is an 800-year-old Germanic language closely related to English. It's 5 p.m. Isabel leaves work and goes to meet an old school friend from home for a drink. As Isabel starts to speak with her old friend, her language begins to change, and she mixes more and more words from Scots into her Scottish Standard English. Her friend does the same. It's 6:30 p.m. and Isabel is going to visit her parents' house tonight and to eat an evening meal with them. When she arrives, Isabel and her parents speak almost entirely in Scots. So over the course of one day, Isabel has gone from speaking one language, Scottish Standard English, to another language, Scots, and even mixed the two together at times. This example of Isabel describes something called the Scots Linguistic Continuum. Many Scottish speakers do what Isabel does, choosing which language to speak depending on who they are with and where they are. We can see here at this point on the continuum when Isabel speaks to the Italian coffee shop owner or her international students. She speaks almost entirely in Scottish Standard English. But here is her conversation with her old school friend, mixing Scots words into Scottish Standard English. Finally, when she eats with her parents, Isabel is here, speaking almost entirely in Scots. Let's now listen to some real-life examples of Scottish speakers at different parts of the continuum, moving from Scottish Standard English to Scots.
About a mile from here, in the National Museum of Scotland, you will find on display a steam engine designed by the great engineer James Watt.
I had at the premiere of, was it Suffragette? My wife's just been in a film, and I thought if anybody calls out my name, I'll go and sign autographs, and as it happened.
Hi, I'm Lisa Sheeran. got in touch with me on email and just said we're looking for a kind of new version of the Northern Lights, something that's nae as upbeat as other ains, like a bit more kind of reflective and melancholic.
So you said that when you were a bairn yourself, your father would ging about the house singing burns all the time. Is that where you got your kind of poetic lug? On to your next poem, A Dug, A Dug. This is Ian you tack around the schools, is it?
But A Dug is a super poem because it's for Glasgow. It's for the Central Belt, and I think it's important to ken that Scots are spread over the whole country in different ways.
As an Ayrshirman that new bides in Fife, I bring fraternal greetings for ayont the tay. In the words of Yenny Arain, David Rory, where och is a doctor, doondoner in Ochter Derrin parish. Who can ye fully be yoursel? Gin the lead that rocht ye, your very first windy into the world, was gien gay little status.
So, to understand my students' question, why can they understand me but not always speakers outside of the classroom? Well, this is because in the classroom, teachers will stay at this side of the continuum, using Scottish Standard English with them. As we know, Scottish Standard English is largely the same as formal written English, meaning the main difference students will have to contend with is the Scottish accent. But outside of the classroom, students may encounter Scottish people at different parts of the continuum, and some of whom will mix Scots words and phrases into their English, or speak only in Scots at this side of the continuum, which most international students will have little to no experience with at first. If you've had this experience yourself, it's definitely not your fault. After all, Scots is a different language that you have likely never experienced before. However, the longer you spend in Scotland, the more likely it is that you will learn the most commonly used Scots words and phrases, making it easier to understand what people are saying at all parts of the Scots Linguistic Continuum. If you found this video useful or interesting, please like and subscribe to receive notifications when new content is released.